Good afternoon, dear Minister, dear Ambassador, dear colleagues from Vienna, dear students, those who are in the auditorium and those who are online. I would like to welcome everybody very warmly today. And I am very proud to say that we can continue our program of high-level lectures. Today we are welcoming at the College of Europe in Natolin Minister, Federal Minister, EU, responsible for EU and Constitution, coming from Vienna, who was so kind to accept our invitation, Madame Karoline Edtstadler, who will be speaking today on the Quo Vadis Europa, and who is so kind to agree to answer your questions if you have any after. I am also grateful to Ambassador Stadler, a new ambassador of Austria to Poland, who made this event possible. Thank you very much for that. Madam Minister, your being with us here is a good sign, a sign of greater, bigger cooperation between the College of Europe in Natolin and your government. I have to say that from Natolin point of view, Austria and its capital, Vienna, has a lot to say about the state of Europe, the shape of Europe, as it was in the past. Before the joining of the European Union in 1995, Austria was natural and respected advocate for reintegration of the continent after the end of the Cold War. Austrian politicians, businessmen, academics, and journalists were always involved in the process of building bridges between the East, as we used to say, and the West. They understood very well the other part of Europe, very, very well. That is why such a mission of building bridges was just possible. They invested a lot of energy and efforts and dedication into putting together again that what had been once together and recreating broadly understood Central Europe as the part of the West. We remember also here at Natolin many meetings with former Vice Chancellor Erhard Buzek. Today, Austria is known for its clear views on European integration in all its aspects. Austria, with its unique geopolitical location and status, its rich historical experience and culture, last but not least, its economic interests, make your position, Austrian position, and views on Europe thought-provoking for everybody who has been dealing with European matters for many years. So, I am so glad that during your visit to Poland, you have decided to devote some time to us, to the College of Europe, to the students of the College of Europe, but also Austrian students who are also online with us. And we are waiting for Viennese options, views on Europe, on state of Europe, and after Madam Minister agreed to answer your questions if you have any. Madam Minister, the floor is yours.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, dear Vice Rector, for this very warm welcome here in Natolin. It's my first time here. It's my fourth time in Poland as a minister, and so I would say, Excellencies, Ladies and gentlemen, could there be a better day than the Valentine's Day to talk about the future of the European Union? Happy Valentine's Day to all of you. You already won because you are studying here. And when it comes to the expertise in the field of the European law, I would say that this college, the Collège d'Europe here and in Bruges, are the most important universities ever in the world. So we also have very famous alumni in Austria. For example, our foreign minister Alexander Schallenberg was in Bruges, and you know all Thomas Meyer-Harting. He is also teaching here. He should be with us, but he couldn't travel with us. But his son, he is my chief of cabinet. He is with us, and he is here to surveil the situation also and to report back home. But I think we have it also hybrid and online, so maybe Thomas Meyer-Harting can listen to us also. Well, for all these reasons, because this is a very important university, I decided as a minister responsible for the European Union and constitutional affairs in Austria that we will provide scholarship for Austrians. And I heard there is only one Austrian at the moment, so we would like to see more Austrians studying here. Is the Austrian among us? Ah, yes, he's here, okay. So go out and tell the others how good it is to study here, how empowered you get out, because we are counting on you, we are counting on your expertise, because it is the time now to shape the future of the European Union. And we have never needed more your expertise than now to have a good future for all of us. Go out and tell your friends. Today, we or you, I don't know who chose the topic of my speech here. You chose the topic Quo Vadis, European Union Quo Vadis. And I think that's the most important question we can raise in a time where the Conference on the Future of Europe is ongoing, where we are facing a lot of challenges, and where we do have one thing which I would name as the European Union paradox. Well, what do I mean? During the pandemic, during the more than last 2 years in the meantime, we saw that we are more dependent on the European Union than ever before. We have to tackle challenges together, otherwise we won't find a solution. We successfully fought the virus. Within less than 1 year, we had vaccines ready to be safe regarding the pandemic. The European Union distributed 1.2 billion of these doses for their own citizens, and the European Union showed also that it is responsible when it comes to other regions of the world, more than any other region in the world. So we distributed 1.6 billion doses to 150 countries all over the world, and that's really important, because in this pandemic we have to say no one is safe until everyone is safe. But more of this, the European Union managed also to put money on the table. Let's put it like that. And you may remember the negotiations in July 2020, when the heads of state and government stayed in Brussels for 4 nights and 5 days, negotiating not only the budget but also the EU Next Generation Fund, 750 billion of euros for the recovery of the European Union, for the recovery of our economic systems, and for the sake of us, for our future, let's put it like that. And you remember maybe also that there were 4 countries plus Finland, the so-called frugal 4, who were really very clear that this money should be used to make the green and digital transition come true. That is one of the very important things we achieved during this pandemic. At the same time, and now I'm coming to the paradox, people are not really satisfied with the European Union. Even though the European Union delivers, it doesn't meet public expectations. But why? Maybe because expectations are much higher than all the solutions we are bringing on the table. Maybe because people, we are a little bit spoiled. We had decades of peace, we had decades of prosperity. We had peace and security in Europe. And we are waiting answers from the European Union, from the politicians. But who is the European Union? We should really ask these questions. Maybe another reason is that more and more challenges are arising. And I would like to mention only a few of them. The climate change, the migration issue, the global economic competition, the digital space, which is dominated by Chinese and American platforms, the terrorism and cybersecurity issues, the hybrid threats we are facing, especially when we are looking to Ukraine and the Russia conflict. I don't want to put it like that, but the issue we are seeing and which is really feelable even more here in Poland. But also the political instability around the European Union and the conflicts. And at that point I would like to quote a former Austrian Chancellor, Wolfgang Schüssel. I had the honor to have a double interview with him. It was on the occasion of the Europe's Day in 2021, and at that occasion he said, if we did not have the European Union by now, we would have the need to invent it right now. And I think he's so right. We need the European cooperation more than ever. We need to strengthen our forces to tackle the big challenges. Now, let's turn to some of these challenges. I can't talk about all of them, but I would like to talk about climate change, about digitalization, about the protection of European values, and about foreign policy. We all agree that we have to do something, that we have to reduce CO2. And I remember quite well, I was a very short time, only 6 months, but I was member of the European Parliament. And at that time, Ursula von der Leyen held a big speech in the Parliament, and she was talking about the man on the moon moment. And we were all looking to each other and saying, okay, what is she talking about? What is the man on the moon moment? In the meantime, we know a lot more. We have the Green Deal, we have a lot of regulations on the table, we have a package which is called Fit for 55. We have the SDGs integrated also in the European Union policy. We have the big and ambitious goal to be climate neutral in 2050, and at the same time we want to guarantee sustainable growth. Well, the devil is in the detail. I don't know if you had the time to read all the 4,000 and even more pages. In the meantime, I did not have the time to go in all the details, but I see that we have to face a lot of challenges, because in the end, we have to question ourselves, how can we reduce CO2 emissions without forcing citizens to completely change their way of life against their will? How can we transition from fossil energy to 100% renewable energy without making life much more expensive for citizens? Currently, we are facing the highest inflation rate in decades. Sources of clean energy are much more expensive than fossil fuels. And people are very clear. They are prepared to save our planet as long as they can afford to do so. But at the moment, citizens have less money in their wallets. I have the fear that they would turn to populist politicians, and they are already waiting. So we have to find an answer and to get the commitment of people. We have to find an answer on the question, how can we shape a green continent without creating new rules and restrictions that harm European companies or our industry in times of global competition? The business sector is not the enemy. The business sector is key to have technologies which we can use to create this green continent. We are not asked to create restrictions that kill businesses and jobs also for you and the next generations. We have to focus on innovation, but that's only one part of the answer. The other part of the answer, I want to hear from you if you have any ideas. And then Let's turn to digitalization. We all agree that our lives are more and more digital. They are taking place online. If you have a mobile phone, your whole life is on the mobile phone. Emails, notes, pictures, everything you can find puts your whole life. But did you ask yourself where this technology is coming from? There's no social media platform from Europe. There is no search platform from Europe. Or do you have a European mobile phone? I guess not, unless you have a Nokia. But that's maybe the case for some of your grandparents, but normally not for our generation. Shopping takes place on Amazon. Well, it's quick, it's good. You find nearly everything you need or you don't need. Movies are watched on Netflix and on YouTube. Is it European? Nope. Everybody who is attending here online is, I guess, using Zoom, Teams, or Cisco. Is it European? No, it's not European. So we could laugh about that fact. But in fact, this is a very dangerous fact because we are really left behind China and behind the US. So what is the answer? Well, the answer seems to be easy. We have to build up digital unicorns. We need better infrastructures, regulatory environments that enables real innovation. It is late, but it is not too late. And Europe is again in this situation setting benchmarks because we are now negotiating the DSA and the DMA, and we are negotiating the democracy package, the digital tax, which should also foresee that enterprises who make their wins in Europe have to pay their tax where they make their wins. That's not the case so far. So we have the need to tackle cyber threats, and we have the need to be aware that blackouts are not far away in some books, but they could happen every day. So we should be better prepared. And then there is another thing, and this is probably my most favorite topic to talk about because, yeah, I'm a former criminal judge, I'm a lawyer, and I'm also the Minister for Constitutional Affairs, and this is the European values. What are the European values? Well, rule of law, human rights, and democracy. And that's nothing which is naturally given. That's something we need to surveil and to guide. We have to defend these values. And these are the core values of the European Union. We are working upon these conglomerate of pillars. And it's the only thing we have to care that we can safeguard it here and that we can also export it to the world. We need, of course, to look that all the member states of the European Union stay on track. And I'm saying that in a land, in a country like Poland, where we have the discussions on the rule of law regularly in the General Affairs Council, where I have the honor to represent Austria as a Minister for European Affairs, and where we are discussing this, sometimes quite controversial, to put it in a rather diplomatic way. But I think there is nothing else than really be very strict on the rule of law issue, because this is one thing where we must not make any compromises. And I was quite clear also today by with my colleague, the European Minister here, and he has the need to discuss that also with all the other 26 member states of the European Union next Tuesday. So the European Union created a lot of tools to surveil the rule of law. For example, the conditionality regulation, the infringement procedures, the annual rule of law report, and the dialogue which takes place once per half a year. So every presidency has to do that. And I think in March it's the turn of Austria also to defend the Austrian rule of law principles. Well, it's obvious that we don't want to judge each other, but that we should rather learn from each other and learn from the best practice models. And that is something I learned during my time at the Council of Europe. I was working at the European Court of Human Rights for nearly 2 years, and my learnings could be summed up in one phrase, and my team can't hear it any longer, I guess, because I'm telling them again and again, and everyone else also, but I think it's really a perfect phrase. You can sum it up by saying, don't judge someone in whose shoes you didn't walk. You always have to look into details, the geographical situation, the social, the economic situation, the political situation, where people are coming from. We talked over lunch, where is Poland coming from a communist country going to a modern, Western-oriented country. That's not always easy, but it's worth. And you only can achieve results at the negotiating table if you understand the background. And talking about the understanding of a country brings me to my last point. That's the foreign policy. 2021 was a tough year. We remember the attack on the US Capitol. We remember the developments in Belarus, the withdrawal of US troops from Afghanistan, maybe a shock that is really deeply rooted in Americans still today. The massive Russian troops movement at the Ukraine border, which is definitely a topic here in Poland. And yeah, the year 2021 was not only a pandemic year, it also marked a year which brought tensions and events we could not imagine that they will take place in the Western world, and I'm encompassing also the US attack on the US Capitol. Well, what is the answer to that? The answer can only be that we are speaking with one voice, that there is, in the end, a European Union foreign policy, that there is the European Union which is seen in the global world as a real power. And we have a lot of power, but we have to bring it to the ground. And I think this is also the case when we are now looking to the conflict Russia-Ukraine. I was very clear today also towards the media, so was our Foreign Minister Alexander Schallenberg when he visited Ukraine last week, that we will of course be on board if there is the need for sanctions towards Russia. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about speaking with one voice. Because it's also clear sanctions are harming member states, some more than others, because some are more in interconnection with Russia than others. But we have to do that. The same applies to the region of the Western Balkan. We have the need to give them a perspective, a European true perspective, because otherwise other countries will increase their influence. And this is already the case when we are looking that China is increasing its influence, building motorways, for example, that Russia is increasing its influence, also Turkey and many other states. They have really deserved to get a credible European perspective, and a realistic one, because there won't be a full member of the European Union in 5 years. Maybe it takes 10 years, maybe in some of the cases even longer, but it's worth to be honest with them and to give them not only the stick but also the carrot. And that's what we have to do now. I also traveled to Bulgaria 2 weeks ago now, and I have a real good impression of the new government there, because the Prime Minister is willing to do what is necessary. And I'm coming back, what is necessary, not what is, in a political sense, that what people, as a quick win, want to see. So he is really trying to solve the issue with Northern Macedonia. And I could go on with external policy, with foreign policy when it comes to migration. It's also important to speak with one voice and to tell people, okay, you can come to Europe if you have a reason for asylum. If not, then there will be a clear answer of the European Union, because we can't take all the asylum seekers and encompass them in the European Union. And only to mention one number, in Austria we had during the last year nearly 40,000 asylum application, and we had 45,000 irregular border crossings. So that's an enormous amount of people trying to get in the European Union. Of course, they have already been in the European Union, otherwise they wouldn't have come to Austria. But that's also why we have to to show solidarity towards the countries at the border. And again, Poland is a country with an external border, a very long external border, a critical external border, and in a time where it is very crucial to have a good security system in place. As promised, I'm coming to the end because I want to hear your assessments, your visions. Also, I will try to answer your questions, but I would like to hear from you what you are thinking about the situation, how you think that the European Union should change, that it is also resilient and important for the next generation. What are your awakens also regarding the conference on the future of Europe? And, well, I'm coming back to the beginning. There is no better day than the Valentine's Day to talk about the future on the European Union. I thank you very much for your attention, and I'm very curious for your assessments and for your questions. Thank you so much.
Dear Minister, thank you very much for inspiring introduction to a good discussion on this special day which is devoted to love, devoted to understanding. So let's begin a dialogue with our dear Minister and questions. Who will start? Please do. Please do. Yeah. If you can introduce yourself. Thank you very much.
Madam Minister, thank you for the inspiring talk, really inspiring, I have to say. My name is Adam. I come from the Czech Republic, and my question revolves around a topic that you've touched upon briefly, but in some sense even in more depth, and that is the foreign policy and the one voice, particularly in the case of the reaction to the developments in Belarus after the last presidential election. And I wonder, Austria is one of the countries that seems to have undergone quite an evolution very recently in terms of its position in the Council of the European Union, and I wonder whether you think that the position of the Austrian government, particularly regarding the sanctions on the banking sector, were a mistake previously, and if not, how would you comment on that, Albert? Thank you very much.
Thank you. One by one, collect. Okay, please, our Austrian colleague, and then you.
Madam Minister, thank you for being here, for your speech. I wanted to raise the point of Austria being historically at the center of Europe, and an important hub for diplomacy and solving many conflicts. And especially Vienna brought in the past leaders together from all the world to peaceful solutions for conflicts. So I wanted to find out which is and which could be the role of Austria in the conflict in Ukraine and Russia, since Austria has important ties, economic ties with Russia, and could play an important position in this conflict between East and West. Thank you.
Thank you very much, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. My name is Luca, and I come from Spain. I had a question regarding the situation of democracy and the rule of law in Europe. And I particularly wanted to ask you, how can the EU keep track on its integration process? How can we expand the EU projects, bearing in mind that there are some countries within the EU already that don't agree on a minimal definition of what democracy is? We see that Budapest, Warsaw, have different understandings of what democracy is when it comes to other EU member states. Viktor Orban even referred to a liberal democracy, so I wanted to ask how can the EU expand and incorporate new members and promote democracy, not only within its borders but also outside, if there is not a common definition or agreement on what democracy is. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, Madam Minister.
Well, thank you so much. I would like to start with the first question regarding foreign policy and the reaction on Belarus or other conflicts around Europe. I remember at that moment that our foreign minister said not long ago that Europe is surrounded by a ring of fire, that a lot of conflicts are there when you're looking at the map. And of course, sanctions are the way you can react as a European Union, but the precondition is that you are united and that you are speaking with one voice, that everyone really believes that it is honest and that it is clear and also strict. When you refer to the question regarding the banking sector, I have to admit that Austria, and especially also some institutes, some banking institutes of Austria, are doing a lot of economic work and also investments in the countries like Belarus, like Ukraine, that there, of course, and I can maybe encompass also the second question a bit like that, regarding Russia, there are boundaries and that there are interests, and it's clear, and I mentioned that also during my speech. If you set sanctions, you always have to be aware that it not only hits the enemy, but it can also hit yourself. It can flash back, so to say. And that's why I think sanctions should be the ones which are decided unanimous. Everyone should be on track, and they should be strict, clear, and maybe for a short term, and solve and not prolong the problem. That's why I always also think that's the same regarding Russia. We are at the moment doing everything to boil down the conflict, to not see a further escalation, and to have no breach of international law. But if there is an invasion or any acts from Russia which are illegally regarding in international law, then the sanctions have to be clear, strict, and also in a way that they come quickly. When I'm asked by the Austrian colleague regarding the role of Austria, I can only reiterate what we are always saying and what is true. Austria is a neutral country, but we are not neutral towards war, we are not neutral towards threats, and we are on the side of sovereign states. So what we can do as a neutral country, and I think history showed it already, we can offer a place of negotiating tables, so to say. We can invite people, and we are not within the NATO, for example. So that's a clear advantage also for all the parties who are coming then to Austria and try to find a solution for several problems. And that's what we also tried to do within the Ukraine conflict, and you know that there was also a conference in Austria because some of the parts are trying to move forward to have a constitution. We really support with our manpower, with knowledge, and with Vienna as a place where you can negotiate, and I think that's a clear advantage. I am personally coming from Salzburg, and that there is the phrase that one author, I'm searching the name now, said Salzburg is the heart of Europe. So where, when not in Austria, we can offer such good places. Well, and then I turn to the question from the Spain colleague. By the way, Austria and Spain are collaborating very closely in several questions, also regarding the conference on the future of Europe. I found a true partner in Spain, thanks to your home country. When it comes to democracy and the integration process, I would say we have to do two things. We have to surveil democracy, rule of law, and human rights within the European Union and beyond, because coming from the tradition of the Council of Europe, these are 47 member states, and we are talking with Turkey and with Russia within the Council of Europe, and they are all committed to the European Convention of Human Rights, and that's an important thing to mention. So we have to surveil it. We have within the European Union the need to develop new tools. We did it in the last 2 years. We have the rule of law mechanism, we have these dialogues. I was not very concrete on that, but every half year, so for every presidency, 5 countries, and it's in an alphabetical order, are questioned by colleagues. But it's not like, I'm a bit provocative in the Article 7 procedure, a shaming and blaming, but it is a learning from each other. And I think that's what's bringing us forward, where we can learn from each other. Example, I think in Austria we have a quite good, stable rule of law system and a really good democracy. Even if we heard some voices during the pandemic that is not the case, but okay, leave that beside, I can also comment on that. However, we had the Denmark hearing, and I saw, okay, in Denmark, they are really front runners regarding the digitalization of the justice system, and that is something, even if I'm Minister for Constitutional Affairs, I'm still interested in justice as I was a criminal judge. So we can really learn from each other. That's the one thing. And the other thing is that we have the need and also the responsibility to export our values in the form of giving lectures, but not top down, but bottom up. And I did it when I was an international expert in the Council of Europe. For example, also within the Council, I was in Russia, in 5 different regions of Russia, and we had several experts from other countries. I remember a president of a court from the Netherlands, so we became friends, yeah? And we were traveling through 5 regions of Russia, teaching. And at the beginning, I can tell you, it was like, oh my gosh, what is this young lady telling us? Who is she to tell us how we should reform our justice system? And in the end, when the 5th seminar came to an end, we were friends. So, and there was an understanding, and that's what I mean when I talk about don't judge someone in whose shoes you didn't walk. And it's hard work, but it's our responsibility, because in the world, it's not naturally given that we have rule of law, democracies, and human rights.
Thank you very much. We'll continue coming back to your comment on the Austrian-Spanish cooperation on Future of Europe conference. Our Spanish colleague was part of the conference conference on Future of Europe organized here. So one day we will also talk about his evaluation of this exercise, I would say. But you can also ask questions, because maybe in the lobby. Yeah, that is why I am trying, to provoke him. However, I can see that he's understanding. So maybe in the lobby, if you want to say something, please, because Minister was very much interested in it. Thank you.
Yeah, just to say that I have a very positive image of what happened, because we had a panel session here at the college, and some of my colleagues and I were working as note takers and were witnessing the discussions. And I think it was unique in the sense that there were people coming from different countries, and they were sharing their views on the energy transition, and they were debating on very technical matters, such as undergoing the Green Deal, and, for example, like introducing legislation in order to encourage the use of green energy. And I think that everyone there had I think that at the beginning some of the participants had a bit of a pessimistic view on that, but at the last day, I think that lots of them were quite convinced that that was a very positive event, because they agreed on, I think, that more than 60 recommendations. They voted for, there were 57 that were voted, and so they are going to be brought into the plenary session. So I think that they all saw that it was a very fruitful event, and yeah, I think that me, together with my colleagues, we also agree on that. Just to say this comment, thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, shall we continue asking questions? Please here and then. Okay, one and the third. Yes, you are.
Madam Minister, thank you very much for your intervention. My name is Arnaud Vibret, I'm from France, and you talked about a very important issue as well, that is cybersecurity, and a very important issue for many of my colleagues as well here, also to create more resilient Europe and also to protect our values. So in your perspective, Austrian perspective as well, we know also that it's a domain from the sovereign domain, it's from national states, cybersecurity, and we were wondering also, in your perspective, what would be the added value of the European Union in this area to respond to the cyber threats and to protect our people and our institutions as well. Thank you very much. Vielen Dank.
Thank you. On my left, at the last row, thank you.
Hello, thank you, Madam Minister, for this really interesting lecture. My name is Nika, I come from Georgia, and I would like to ask you if you could speak about the position of Austria regarding the eastern enlargement of the European Union, particularly for Moldova, Ukraine, and Georgia. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, and the last one in this round.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm Arnaud from France too. So you told us about the problematic of the inclusion of renewables and the abandonment of fossil fuel. How, for middle term or long term perspective, what should be the role of the European Union to avoid too big greenflation and greenflation, the inflation caused by the rising energy prices? Thank you.
On peut parler français aussi, non? Well, regarding cybersecurity, I would like to start with that topic. During the French presidency now, there is the goal to finalize the negotiations regarding DSA and DMA. I met the minister, Cédric O, already last year, or was it in 2020? I guess it was in 2020, because I wanted to invent at that time Austrian law against cybersecurity and against hatred in the internet, to be very concrete. And at that time, it was very important to have a good cooperation with France, because France wanted to do the same. And we managed to do so, and I'm very proud on that. Since the 1st of January 2021, we do have the so-called Kommunikationsplattformengesetz. That means that social platforms are responsible to delete hate in the internet within 24 hours, if it's very clear that it is against the criminal law. And if there is the need to prove it in more details, in a judicial way and a legal way, then they have time for 7 days. Why I'm saying that? Because you asked me where I see the added value when the European Union, or even more maybe globally, this is done. The answer is clear. The internet knows no borders. Hate in the internet is spread really quickly, and we have to do something against it quickly. Because for the victims, it's really hard to see that it is everywhere before they can try to catch it. And that's the added value I see. I had a meeting with Cédric O only 2 months ago. At the beginning, no, it's not even 2 months, it was the beginning of January when France took over the presidency, and they are really ambitious to finalize the DSA and the DMA, and that's what I meant when I said the European Union again is setting benchmarks, because everywhere in the world you have social media. For example, in China you have a lot, it's another example, IA, and you have no rules. And the European Union is now setting the benchmarks, setting rules, clear law enforcement mechanism also to tackle this problem. It won't be easy, I can tell you. When I started to invent this system and to introduce this system in Austria, some of the journalists were asking me, but how can you do that? Because the social media platform, they won't do what you ask them to do. And I said, okay, I will see that enterprises, and social media platforms are nothing else than enterprises, are acting in Austria and making their wins in Austria, not obeying Austrian law. Well, let's see. So the answer is, we did it, it's in force, and with 2 exceptions, I can name it, Twitter and the other one is Telegram. They are not obeying the rules so far, but we will catch them. And that's the added value I see. If we have the European regulations, then it's of course stronger than you have only the need to do it in Austria and in Germany, because they also have the Netzwerkdurchsetzungsgesetz. Well, regarding the question from Georgia, I remember, and I hope it's the right phrase I'm using now, the Eastern European Partnership is something very important also for the European Union. It is not so much about becoming a full member of the European Union from the perspective of the European Union, and I'm always very honest, and I think everyone should stay realistic, but the Eastern European Partnership is important for the European Union as well. It is important for the countries. And I had the honor to represent our Chancellor in a meeting only a few months ago in Brussels. And you get a feeling for the needs, the security needs. You get a feeling for the needs of this region. And we have, of course, the need to know what they want to achieve. And we have to give a perspective for a good and even better and more intensive cooperation of the future. But I would not talk about a membership of these countries. The next step is really to integrate and bring the process forward regarding the Western Balkan countries. That's really needed, because if you look at the map, then you have a hole towards the countries, in the 6 countries and 6 partner countries of the Western Balkan. But regarding the countries you mentioned, and also Georgia, I think we should deepen the cooperation in the sense of the Eastern European Partnership. And then regarding the last question also from France regarding inflation and energy prices, well, that's the most difficult question to answer, to be honest. I don't have an answer here. This would be easy. I could be somewhere else if I had the answer to that, especially at a time where we see that the conflict between Ukraine and Russia is rather increasing than decreasing, and where we have the need to be also realistic, because many countries of the European Union get their gas from Russia. And if there is an escalation, and if Russia is maybe as a reaction on the sanction turning off the gas, then it's cold and it's expensive, and we really get in troubles. That's why we really try to boil down this conflict, and why we don't want to see any further escalations.
Thank you very much. I am afraid that we can take only, Madam Minister, only one question. Who would like to ask the last question?
Or give me your vision. Give me your vision of the European Union.
Please do. Ukraine.
Thank you, Madam. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
I cannot give you a vision about European Union because I come from Ukraine. So, but in any case, I have 2 relative questions, but mostly concerning about Ukraine. That you are talking about the unity concerning sanctions, for example, and that Austria supported. And first of all, I am very thankful as Ukrainian for your support and your position. But when we are talking about, for example, sanctions, okay, we have like a unity. But when we're talking about the military assistance for Ukraine, we have like Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, and other countries, Czech Republic, who provide some military assistance to Ukraine, and we see other European countries who, there is a split, actually, in this regarding this question, that regarding military, some delivery of some military equipment, etc. And the second question is also concerning about sanctions. 2 days ago, I suppose you know about it, that the Russian ambassador to Sweden said that they don't care about sanctions, actually. But he said it in a little bit other way, I will not repeat it. But in any case, maybe European Union should change a bit the vector of the, or maybe like deepen the integration, and not only in not only in civil security, but also in military security, and like help Ukraine to defend itself like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
A few short comments on that maybe. First of all, I can only reiterate we are a neutral country. We will stay a neutral country, and we won't deliver weapons to a country in the face or in the foreyard of maybe a war. Secondly, we want to avoid a military conflict and a war. But of course, I understand from your perspective that these things are needed. We offer, for example, humanitarian help. We have also, I think, 4 million euros in addition this year for solving this conflict, helping in this situation. There are also other countries like Germany helping not with weapons, but with things you need if there is really a military conflict. So I think, thinking back a bit, and I have to think back long in history because we didn't see such a situation in the past decades, thank God, and we hope we won't see an escalation. There is a real unity within the European Union towards this conflict or this problem, you know, and we will do our utmost to help all the partners to boil things down. That's what I can give as an answer. And to your last question, I don't believe that they don't give a point on it if there are clear sanctions from the European Union. In the contrary, I have the impression that Russia is not so happy to see a united European Union, because a united European Union is a strong European Union. And that's exactly what we want to achieve, and that's exactly where the road has to be followed in the next years, in the next decades. And that's one of my visions I do have for the European Union, that we develop our strengths and that we show the world that we are a global player, and not between China and the US, but a global player as such.
Thank you. It was the last question. Just a short one. Depends on minister, not on me. Poland.
Thank you very much. You said that you would do everything to stop Russia and to stop escalating the buildup of troops and of course escalation the conflict. Does it mean that you would do something with Nord Stream 2? I mean, as Austria, together with Germany?
I was very clear on that today also towards the media. If there is a further escalation, if there is an invasion from Russia to Ukraine, which means a clear breach of international law, then we are on the side of the European Union, and whatever is decided and needed regarding sanction as an answer to that, we will be in the same boat with the European Union. And I mentioned also during my speech that sanctions are always not only harmful for the ones who is opposed, or the one who is opposed, but they also flash back. That means regarding gas for Austria as for many other countries as well. And I think we have the need to stay realistic also in this regard. Nord Stream 2, if you mention the name, then we have to say it's ready, it's built, but there is no authorization to run it. And if, and I hope not that there will be a conflict or a war, but if there is a military conflict, we should not be naive. Then no one will achieve an authorization to run a pipeline. That's my answer to that.
Thank you very much. Many, many years ago, people used to say in this part of Europe that Stalin did his best. Stalin was a dictator in the Soviet Union, for those who don't remember that. And many people in the Western Europe said that Stalin did his best to encourage European integration. I think that they were wrong, because European integration and the idea of European integration came from the desire for peace, for a better world. Today, many people say that President Putin has did his best to the unity in Europe. I don't agree, because European Union should be united because of the desire for peace and desire to be its citizens to become more prosperous. But for sure, President Putin did a lot to the unity in Ukraine. So thank you very much, Madam Minister, for today's talk. It was only the half of our meeting, I would say. The second half should be continued when you come back to us, and you are welcome. And always you are welcomed at Natolin. Thank you very much for your very open and direct discussion with our students. It helped a lot to understand your position, the position of your government, as I said, so important for the unity in Europe because of your geopolitical location, your history, historical experience, culture, but also interest, economic interest. So thank you very much. It was a real pleasure, Madam Minister.